The Senate Judiciary Committee is stepping up its probe into a Russian nuclear bribery case. It's suspected the FBI may have had evidence of Russian bribery before the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton approved a uranium deal. The FBI may have had evidence of Russian bribery before the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton approved a uranium deal. That deal greatly expanded Russia's power in America's nuclear industry. Approved a uranium deal. Chairman Chuck Grassley asked that a former FBI informant with knowledge of this testify, but his attorney, Victoria Tunsing, said he was blocked by Obama's Justice Department from speaking out about it. Approved a uranium deal. FBI informant with knowledge of this testify. Blocked by Obama's Justice Department from speaking out about it. Approved a uranium deal. Listen.
When he started working for the FBI in 2009, they had him sign what's called an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement.
FBI informant with knowledge of this testify.
They never gave him a copy of it.
Blocked by Obama's Justice Department.
And when he went public in 2016, way after all this case stuff was done, the
blocked by Obama's Justice Department
under Loretta Lynch called him and threatened him with his freedom.
Blocked by Obama's Justice Department
if he violated the NDA.
Testify.
I've never heard of an NDA that had a criminal penalty for violation.
Blocked.
But they won't show him a copy of it.
President Trump blasted the media for ignoring these new details. He tweeted, quote, ignoring these new details. Uranium deal to Russia with Clinton help and Obama administration knowledge. With knowledge of this, testify. He ignoring these new details. Tweeted, quote, is the biggest story that the fake media doesn't want to follow. Ignoring these new details. Blocked by Obama's Justice Department, end quote. He tweeted, quote, end quote, ignoring these new details. Kimberly, what do you make of this? These new details.
Yeah, I mean, look, this to me is very disturbing because there was so much emphasis put on this and so much, horrible press that just made it look like President Trump might as well have been a plant from Russia to come over and be president of this country. And yet there was other real stories with actual evidence and facts.
New details.
That were covered up.
Blocked by Obama's Justice Department.
And yet there was other real stories with actual evidence and facts.
New details.
That were covered up.
FBI informant with knowledge of this testify.
Covered up. Covered up.
By Obama's Justice Department testify.
Covered up.
FBI informant with knowledge of this testify.
Covered up. Covered up.
By Obama's Justice Department testify.
That weren't properly investigated, covered up, that lies were told about, covered up, and then now we're finding there's actually a complete factual thread.
He tweeted, quote,
to show that there was serious injustice going on, covered up, and it was just like doing business as usual.
Blocked by Obama's Justice Department.
And yet now nothing has come out. Nothing has come out in these investigations against President Trump or to prove collusion on behalf of his team. Nothing. And yet now nothing has come out. Nothing has come out in these investigations against President Trump or to prove collusion on behalf of his team.
He tweeted, well, Jesse, it's so interesting. Right now, what we know is that the Clinton Foundation got $145 million. He tweeted, the Clinton Foundation got $145 million. He tweeted, quote, from individuals who were apparently pushing this uranium deal. Quote, Quote, that would lead you to think, something's fishy here.
Yeah, more than fishy, Juan.
Something's fishy here.
I mean, imagine if the Trump campaign got $145 million from the Russians.
Something's fishy here.
$145 million from the Russians.
The Clinton Foundation got $145 million. Something's fishy here.
God, I mean, MSNBC would be going crazy. $145 million from the Russians.
Something's fishy here.
But the media only cares if there's a Russian story when it involves Trump. $145 million from the Russians.
The Clinton Foundation got
This one lands right in the Clintons' lap.
Fishy.
Clinton's lap.
Something's fishy here. Fishy.
They're giving a lot of money to the Clintons and bribing American energy officials right on the eve of this uranium deal. $145 million.
$145 million
from the Russians.
Something's fishy here.
Right on the eve of this uranium deal. Hillary signs off on the deal. Eric Holder signs off on the deal. Right on the eve of this uranium deal. Meanwhile, Eric Holder's own FBI, run by Comey and Miller at the time, Mueller, were aware of this investigation into the bribery and extortion scheme right on the eve of this uranium deal.
$145 million.
Meanwhile, Eric Holder's own FBI, run by Comey and Miller at the time, Mueller, were aware of this investigation into the bribery and extortion scheme right on the eve of this uranium deal. And they sat on it and did nothing. And they tried to silence someone that wanted to come out and talk about it. Silence someone that wanted to come out and talk about it.
FBI informant with knowledge of this testified, blocked by Obama's Justice Department.
I also saw this. The Associated Press reported more than half the people outside the government who met with Hillary while she was Secretary of State donated to her foundation. Donated to her foundation.
$145 million.
So she's playing the access game. Now it looks like she's playing the influence game. Donated to her foundation. There's some charges that they could bring up here, besides the racketeering.
The Clinton Foundation got
$145 million from the Russians. You have anti-corruption laws, a slew of them that you could throw at this case. Dollars from the Russians. And I'm waiting. Do you think they're going to do anything about it? Knowing Hillary? Dollars from the Russians? Probably not.
So Dana, I think the audience is probably thinking, is this just like politics as sport, as jousting? So the Republicans are now saying, oh, look, Democrats, we think you got involved with the Russians too.
Dollars from the Russians.
The Clinton Foundation got
$145 million from the Russians.
Democrats, we think you got involved with the Russians too.
Well, I don't think so, and partly because
the Clinton Foundation got
$145 million from the Russians.
So Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming, he's on the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. So he wrote a letter to the Obama administration in 2010 saying, I'm concerned about this. This is the whole CFIUS deal. This is where the committee of the government looks at whether or not to approve these deals. This is the whole CFIUS deal. This is where the committee of the government looks at whether or not to approve these deals. He wrote a letter to the Obama administration in 2000. He sends another, he basically is rebuffed. He sends another letter in 2011, nothing. May of 2015. There is actually, I think, a case to be made that it's possible the Obama administration was either just not paying attention,
blocked,
and didn't know what was going on, or was deliberately stalling a member of Congress. And
blocked by Obama's Justice Department.
He's asked the Attorney General to turn over these documents, so maybe they'll get more information.
Gregory.
Yes.
You have any uranium on you?
No, I don't. I could check. No, this story is actually well documented. The New York Times did a piece on it in 2015. This story is actually well documented. The New York Times did a piece on it in 2015. This story is actually well documented. The New York Times did a piece on it in 2015. In 2015. 15. So everybody, I mean, we should look back at Fox and see if we covered this. I think we did. We did. We did in 2015. But I mean, it's out there. The real hypocrisy is the same people who are saying we can't trust the Russians now.
$145 million from the Russians.
Had no problem selling uranium to them back then.
$145 million from the Russians.
Blocked by Obama's Justice Department.
And the other part of the story is we sold them uranium. I mean, were we out of bubonic plague?
The Clinton Foundation got
$145 million from the Russians.
Uranium. I mean, were we out of bubonic plague? I mean, did we ever question like that maybe starting at point one is don't sell Russians uranium?
$145 million from the Russians.
The Clinton Foundation got a...
Sell Russians uranium? Uranium? I mean, were we out of bubonic plague?
$145 million from the Russians.
It's so weird. I think the Trump-Russia story was now a misdirection. A complete misdirection.
Yeah, could be.
See, this is what I was talking about. Democrats, we think you got involved with the Russians too. This is what I was talking about.